Experience has taught me that I am above average intelligence and definitely above average in wisdom. The size of my humility, I'll let you figure that out. Hello, I'm Caleb Landis. This is the Caleb Landis Show. And they told me as I looked into starting a podcast, they told me the first couple of seconds of every episode, especially the first episode, is going to be important. Kind of be a hook to give you all or to catch all your attention, right? And they also told me that I need to give you a reason to stay, to listen. Why in the world should you care about my opinions and my analysis, especially in a world where everybody and their grandmother already has a podcast anyway? So this first episode will also be my answer to that. As you heard, the intelligence and wisdom that I have are some skills and characteristics that make it worthwhile, make it worth you spending your time here. Um, I believe my skills and experiences are unique to make my opinions interesting and my analysis helpful. That is one of the things that you can expect from this podcast. This is not a space for me to vent or to say things that make me feel better. This is a space in which my words will be very carefully crafted to help you. You can also expect accuracy, although I can't guarantee 100% accuracy because I am human and I make mistakes. And also, this is a low or rather zero budget show. It's just me. I have no producers, no fact checkers, no show prep, nothing like that. A very generous friend has allowed me to use her podcast equipment and her space. I think the only thing you see here that I purchased were these headphones. So, not 100% accuracy, but accuracy, yes. And as I hope you're seeing already, complete authenticity and honesty. This show is going to be real. I don't do fake. And in that line, I should point out right now, you've probably heard a lot of famous and successful podcasters say, "This is your show. The show's about you." That is not the case in this show. This is my show. And the show is about me. Now, let me explain what I mean by that. What I mean by that is the only way the show is going to be interesting for you is if I produce interesting content. And the only way I know to produce interesting content is to talk about things that are interesting to me. So I guess in that sense, the show is about you and that I'm creating content that is interesting for you, but I'm doing so by talking about things that I'm interested in. So what are some things that I'm interested in? What's some of the subject matter that you think that you can expect to hear on the show? Well, politics. There will be a lot of politics. You may have noticed the logo or the hat. Now, if you're not a MAGA type person, don't leave just yet. Stick around. I dare you. I dare you to stick around long enough for me to show you that not every MAGA person is a monster. Then you can make your decision after that. The politics is very important to me, and it's going to be a big part of this show. A lot of current events, a lot of politics, a lot of citizen stuff like that. Faith is also extremely important to me. Nothing matters more to me in my life than Jesus. And if you're not a Christian type person, again, I'm daring you to stick around long enough for me to prove to you that not every Christian is a monster. You'll also hear some from time to time about Pittsburgh sports. I like sports, and I'm a Pittsburgh fan. If you are not a Pittsburgh fan, there's no point to you trying to stick around long enough for me to prove to you that not all Pittsburgh fans are monsters. I'm not going to be able to accomplish that because every sports fan that isn't a fan of your favorite team is a monster. Have you noticed? The main reason Pittsburgh sports has come to mean so much to me is because of the other subject that you can expect to hear me talking a lot about on this show, that being family. I am an extremely family oriented person. That is why Pittsburgh sports means so much to me because of the memories that are created with family around it. And I'm going to talk about family here. I'm going to talk about my family and my family experiences and what I think is good for families. With that will come a lot of stuff about education. You'll also hear me talk probably about movies and books and stuff from time to time because I love a good story. Actually, everyone does. If you don't like stories, it's just because you haven't heard a good one yet. I can guarantee you. I do a lot of I'm going to do a lot of storytelling here on this show. So that's what you can expect to hear. But why should you bother? That question has yet to be answered. And the best way I know how to answer that is to tell a story, to tell you the brief version, try to keep it brief, of the story of myself, my life, because that will explain to you the unique experiences that I have that have built unique skills into my life that make my opinions helpful, interesting, worth listening to, and my analysis not only interesting and unique, but I don't want to say authoritative, but worth your time. So we'll start at the beginning. Um, the conservative Christian circles that I grew up in, if you're familiar with those circles, you'll be familiar with this phrase that I was born into a Christian home. What that means is, for those of you who are less familiar with that, with both of my parents were Christians following Jesus before I was born, and were very serious and very focused on that aspect of their lives. And from the very beginning, their Christian choices had a huge impact on me. They chose to work in Christian ministry jobs because they were Christians and they felt as what was God wanted them to do. They chose to homeschool me also because they were Christians and they felt this is what God was asking them to do. So I grew up in a very what a lot of people would consider a very religious setting. We went to church every Sunday, and a lot of times Sunday morning and Sunday night and Wednesday night. And when we weren't at church, a lot of our lives revolved around the Christian ministry work that my dad was hired in. For sometimes he was an assistant pastor, sometimes most of the time he was a kids ministry director. And as a homeschool kid whose dad's office was in our home, all three of us siblings were very involved in the Christian ministry work. So if it's difficult to understand it's me without understanding my Christian background, and it's impossible to understand me and my analysis and opinions on current events or anything else without understanding my faith in Jesus being, I believe what he says about himself, that he is God the Son, that he died, was buried, rose again, in the blood that he bled as he was on the cross dying is the payment that is enough to earn forgiveness for all of my sins and all of yours too, if you're interested. Also, being homeschooled meant that I was at home for lunch, and so was my dad. Remember, his office was at our house, or our house was at his office, I guess. The ministry that he worked for owned the property where we lived. So dad was home for lunch every day as a kid growing up for us kids, and so was I. What that meant was every day when my dad listened to Rush Limbaugh, so did I. And that had a profound impact upon me. Rush's show, Rush's opinions, and Rush's person, right? and his skills as a communicator had a profound impact on me. I'm sure that without that influence in my life, I wouldn't be sitting behind this thing. Obviously, this is a podcast, not a radio show, but I look at it as a very similar medium. That's where a lot of my political conservatism came from. Not all of it, but a lot of it. And that's where the vast majority of my focus on political things came from. I am a firm believer in the way that politics affects our life on a daily basis. But what listening to Rush also allowed me to do is to develop a very keen awareness of what people are doing around me, why they're doing it, and what people are doing in culture at large, and what that means. Not only what they're doing, but what it says for what they're about to do and what they believe in, what their priorities are. You may not agree with Rush Limbaugh's politics, but I hope you are objective enough to realize that he was extremely observant and very good at deriving people's motivation and goals from their words and actions, even people who were professional liars, like most politicians are. And that is something that makes that skill set, that tutelage under a master person understander from a very young age, consistently throughout my entire life, essentially, makes me worth listening to today. I have a unique skill set in the same vein as Rush Limbaugh did. Now, obviously, I'm not going to compare myself to him. That would be humiliating. There's nobody who's going to be another Rush Limbaugh, and almost nobody who's ever going to be as successful as Rush Limbaugh was at what he did. But what I do have a very, very unique skill set in is seeing and noticing people's behaviors, whether they're people who are in my own circles or people that I'm observing from a distance through following politics and current events. I notice things about people's behaviors, their words and their actions. And I detect patterns about their behavior and their actions. And I remember previous behaviors and actions. And I'm very, very good at learning to predict how people are going to behave, and more importantly, understanding why they do, what their strengths, what their weaknesses are, what their goals and what their promises are. Now, I feel a little funny saying that I have a very unique skill set in that area that you will not find in many other places. But like I said, this show is honest. And that is true. Experience has taught me this. And if you don't believe if you don't believe that about me, then stick around and you'll see it, because I see it in myself a lot. I hope I don't weird you out by saying this, but it is also true that God has gifted me in that area. Um, God does that for people. He builds experiences and natural tendencies into people because he has a plan for each person's life. It's not hard for us to recognize that different human beings are talented in different ways, right? So why would it be so hard for us to recognize that those talents come from and are sort of sown into our lives through God and the experiences he sends our way? Anyway, I digress. Rush Limbaugh was a fixture throughout my childhood, and when I got old, when I grew up, grew up enough, got married, and moved out of the house, the first jobs that I pursued were ministry jobs, very much like where I had grown up, what you would call a traditional full-time ministry in traditional evangelical Christian settings. Everything from missionary groups that were not connected to any specific church, like kids ministries where I had volunteer, all the way through leadership positions to working in churches. That was not my life's calling, which is interesting because those groups claim, and many of the ones that I worked with did really focus on doing what God has asked every Christian to do. It was not the way that God wanted me to spend my life. However, these were experiences that God wanted me to have because they taught me things about the differences between religion and faith, between religious leaders and Jesus, and between tradition and the Bible. These are things, these are lessons that I have learned that make me exactly the kind of person that you want to be listening to about issues of faith and religion and Christianity and the Bible in our world today. Again, I feel like I'm bragging here, but remember, the purpose of this first episode is to introduce you to who I am and why you should listen. And why should you listen to someone who's dishonest enough to not talk about the skills that they have as a podcaster? So this is true about me. I know a lot about the Bible. That I really hate saying because you can spend a lifetime studying the Bible and not know a lot about it. But I've read it a lot and I've studied it and I have a good recall for it, right? I went to school for Bible study, college and seminary. Not supposed to brag about your education, right? Who cares? Your experience doesn't matter. Your education doesn't matter. Your experience does. But that education did give me a lot of experience in reading the Bible and interacting with other people who have read the Bible. So um, I've learned a lot about Christian theology, right? And come to mistrust it greatly. I believe the Bible. I don't believe a lot of Christians. Um, and there's a very big difference between the two. After my schooling was done and after my time in ministry jobs was done, my career took a different path, but I brought those experiences with me. Kids ministry, working with kids at churches, right? That grew into a short but very meaningful time working with a kids placement facility in northwestern Pennsylvania, Erie County area where I live now. And I thought that would be a pretty natural transition, right? That was a mistake. But what I was thinking was that that job, that experience would be another opportunity to help people, right? Remember, I already told you that this show is for me in the sense that the content is going to be, this is my show in the sense that the content is going to be interesting to me. But like I already told you, this show is also for you. People matter more to me than anything else. I'm doing this show because I hope, excuse me, allergy season in Pennsylvania where I live. I'm doing this show because I hope it will provide an opportunity for me to help more people with the intelligence, the words, the experience, the opinions, and the analysis that I have to offer. Like I keep saying, my time here on earth has given me unique skills and unique experience. What's the point of having these skills and experience, even just the gift to communicate, which I clearly have? What is the point of having these skills if I don't use them for as many people as possible? And I believe the best way that I am suited to use these skills for as many people as possible is through this podcast. And that's what I was hoping to do at the placement facility where I was working. Use my experience as in working with kids and youth and teens to help some more teens. For most of my time at this placement facility, I worked in the sex offenders unit. Our technical range of people we were allowed to have was 12 through 18. The vast majority of them were probably 13 through 16. What a dark place. What a tragedy. That there were that many young teenagers that were this close to being confirmed and hardened in a life of godless crime and victimizing others. And how sad it was to realize that there were so many homes that were whether intentionally or not, victimizing so many teens. Basically every one of our perpetrators in the sex offenders unit was not only a perpetrator of sex crimes, but a victim of sex crimes. They told us in training, there are the ones that we know about their victim status, and then there's the ones that we don't know yet. And there was nothing in between. And that, I didn't last there long because we weren't really helping those kids. We were kind of confirming them in their patterns of doing the wrong thing and doing the thing that they wanted to do, and either not thinking about or not expecting there to be negative consequences. But the chaplain program there was great. So it was a real opportunity, right? But to help people, help young teens who really needed it. But I just didn't feel that we were doing it, that we were taking advantage of the opportunity. So I didn't last very long there, but I definitely gained some unique and valuable experience. From there, I went to a small private Christian school near where I live, and I taught there for 2 years as the second grade teacher and 2 years as the third and fourth grade Bible, social studies, and science teacher. Now, back up a little bit in my story, you will remember that that I was a homeschool kid. My first day in class was also my first day as a teacher. And you teachers out there are rolling on the floor laughing right now. I was not prepared. I was not prepared. Even though I had worked with kids my entire professional life, it was shocking how little transitioned over from kids ministry type jobs, which obviously focus on educating kids, right? How little of that transitioned over to to a traditional school classroom teacher setting. But again, I learned a ton. Uh, I learned it was eye opening as a homeschooler to learn that there is a way to do a more traditional school setting that can be very helpful. And it was also eye opening as a homeschooler. Excuse me. Told you, one man show here. I don't have a mute button over here that I can cough. Maybe AI can take it out later. I don't know. Um, But it was teaching in a more traditional school setting. I know it's a private Christian school, but it's still a classroom and a teacher. It's not homeschooling, right? It's more what we would call traditional. It was eye-opening to see the potential for good there, and it was also eye-opening to see the potential for problems there. And a lot of my beliefs about family and education and society in general have been colored very significantly by my 4 years as an educator in a classroom setting. And from there, I went to the job that I hold today and gave me the arena, I guess, that put me in the arena, that pushed me into really wanting to reach out to more people. Um, if you fast forward in my life to just a couple of years ago, I was extremely concerned about the COVID lockdowns in 2020. They were not helping people avoid getting sick, and they were hurting people, including the kids that I taught the year after COVID. Um, they were messing with the psyche of the whole country. The cure, the lockdowns, was worse for the vast majority of people than the disease. And yet, Democrat governors and political figures were clinging to the power that those COVID restrictions gave them with the desperation of an addict. And I realized then that people on the political left in our country would take whatever power and whatever freedom they could get unless we peacefully stopped them. As you may have guessed, I wasn't at all convinced by or pleased with the results of the 2020 election, and I was even more dismayed by the results of the Biden regime. And as 2024 approached and it became clear that Donald Trump was running again, it also became clear that what a lot of people on the political right call the swamp, the deep state, the establishment, the people who have caused so many of our problems in America, were simply not going to allow President Trump to be reelected, including making up ridiculous civil and criminal cases. And those cases, as that lawfare process progressed, I knew I had to do something. God had called me to be a father and a husband, right? He had brought an amazing wife, Abby, into my life, and at the time, two amazing kids. And what I saw the political opponents of Donald Trump doing to him was basically Banana Republic, communist takeover kind of stuff. And I knew what happens in a society that goes through a communist takeover. And I knew what happens to Christian, nonconformist families like my own after a communist takeover. It became very clear to me, God was explaining to me very clearly that my responsibility as a husband and as a father to take care of my family, and my responsibility as a Christian to love my neighbor, meant to make sure that these power-hungry, evil, godless, communist adjacent, fascist, totalitarian, whatever you want to call them, American left did not receive power anymore, any political power or societal influence, that I had to do everything I peacefully could to stop that. And that is what brought me to Early Vote Action. I am the Erie County coordinator for Scott Pressler's PAC, Early Vote Action. That's my full-time job. And I'm extremely excited that I get paid to try to build a better world, a better country, a better state, and a better community for my family and for you. And that is the ultimate goal of this podcast, which, along with my unique experience and skills, which you hopefully understand a little better, make my opinions and analysis worth listening to you. I can tell you, you are not going to find anybody else with a story like that on the internet. There's nobody else quite like me with that background, that unique and varied background, and the skills and experiences that has built into my life. This could be a lot of fun. It's not going to be a crazy shock jock kind of a show, but I would highly recommend that you tune in on Tuesdays. For now, we're on Rumble, we're on Facebook, and we are on YouTube. Tuesdays, unless I've got something really big going on that week, once a week, every Tuesday. Give it a chance. Give me a chance. It's not going to take you long to see that I'm actually very good at this, that my analysis is correct, and my opinions, especially about people, have been proven accurate again and again. So hopefully I will see you Tuesday.